Hello and welcome to the only podcast where I hunted for a joke all day, but I ended up not wanting to record it. And I'm sure you guys can echo that as well. I really put my crosshairs on it and incorporated some tech, but it came out with nothing. Omega. I'm Matt.
I'm Luke.
And I'm Max.
And this is Force for Thought.
That was elaborate.
It was.
that
And
was a roller coaster. That was
Yeah.
a
great.
joke, and honestly, I wasn't that on board until you just said Omega.
yeah, I had nothing. I had nothing for that. Well, hello, welcome back. We are talking the Bad Batch Season 2 review, which is, next week, Bad Batch Season 3 starts. We figured we'd look back on the most recent season and talk about it. We all did a rewatch. We rewatched an episode specifically today, which I'm interested in why you wanted to rewatch that.
You want to know?
I do want to
So
know. I don't know why I didn't ask you earlier.
Obviously, watched all of Bad Batch Season 2 when it aired, and then I rewatched it this week. Both times, I fell asleep during Metamorphosis.
Really?
That was my first time.
Interesting.
You know what it's like when you fall asleep watching TV. You're in and out.
Yep.
And there was a lot of parts when I was rewatching it just earlier with you guys that I was like, oh, I've seen this part. And then 10 seconds later, I was like, I have no idea where we are all of a sudden.
That's such a
understand
good
it.
one, too. It's the return of the Zillow Beast.
It was great. And maybe
It
that's why,
is.
because I didn't see it live or as live as it could be. I didn't see
Yeah.
it like right when it dropped. And so I saw on Twitter that it was the return of the Zillow Beast episode. And then when I was watching it, I was kind of dozing off and I was like, oh yeah, there's a beast hunting him. It's the Zillow Beast. And then they capture it and they're like, oh, what is this thing? And I'm just in my head sleeping. Like I'm starting to close my eyes like, yeah, it's the Zillow Beast. That's fine. I know what's happening.
Matthew,
You're there.
I know you have like
Yes.
a whole order for this, and I'm so sorry to go out of it already, but I
Let's do it.
love that episode. Because
Yes.
the Zillow Beast was one of the few leftover stories from the Clone Wars that was unresolved.
Mhm.
But also, I remember watching it the first time because I did watch it the day it came out, and I didn't know it was the Zillow Beast.
Mhm.
And I remember, like, as it started to grow and grow, I started to have that feeling in me where I was like, this thing looks familiar. I think I've seen this before. And then, like, before it was, like, painfully obvious, I was
Yeah.
like, this is the Zillow Beast.
It's very cool. The Metamorphosis is a great episode because I think the season, and that's the thing, rewatching this whole season.
Oh, did I call it the wrong thing just now when I was talking about it? I'm sorry.
You said
Go on.
Metamorphosis.
Excellent. All right, cut that. Sorry. I'm good.
This rewatching this season, we talk about how much we like season 2 of the Bad Batch, but my God, rewatching it, I was like, it's very good.
Sorry, I just had a thought to cut
No,
you off.
please cut me
This
off.
is another video. This is another video episode. This is our second episode where we have video up and running. So
That's true.
if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you are, you can head over to YouTube and see our faces also.
That's true. And every week, 2 out of the 3 of us will be wearing a hat, I think. That's something I've noticed.
I wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
I'm a big hat guy now.
And then Luke and I have been rotating. So what are your overall thoughts rewatching it? And if you guys can conjure up your thoughts about watching it when it came out too, we kind of already talked about the release schedule, not keeping up with it as much as we did, because I think season 1 we were like, okay, I'd rather watch it in bulk. So we kind of covered that stuff. But like rethinking back when you were watching season 2 live and then versus rewatching it now, has any thoughts differed between there, or like what are your overall thoughts of the season? And then we can kind of go a little bit by episode as well.
I mean, overall, strongly pro. I really like this series, and
Mhm.
this season I think was overall probably better than season 1 because while there was probably like the same quantity of filler episodes, I thought the quality of the filler episodes were better.
Mhm.
We can talk about that when we go episode by episode, but we've mentioned before the tech not pod racing episode I thought was really good.
So
Mm-hmm.
to piggyback off that, I was one of the people that did make fun of that episode, and it's still one of my least favorite episodes of the season. But upon rewatch, I do appreciate it more, specifically for that storyline with
Mhm.
Sid and whatever that other better gambler name is.
The Dawoon.
Yeah, does he have a name?
I know his
Oh, okay, that makes
species
me-
is Dawoon.
Well, that makes me feel better though if you don't know his name. But then he has that line where he said, "Sooner or later they're going to find out who you really are," or something along those lines,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was
Mhm.
like, I didn't realize that the first time I'm watching it. I thought it was just like a throwaway line in this kind of random episode. But now looking back, knowing that she betrays them in the end of the season, I'm like, oh my gosh, this episode of all the episodes had very important foreshadowing.
Well, and beyond that, it's the first time we kind of get a glimpse of potentially Tech dying as well. And I feel like in Faster, its focus is solely on him, and he's going out there for the greater good of the Bad Batch. And so it's like, looking back, that is a weirdly pivotal, and that's the thing. There's not many filler episodes in this season that don't further somebody's story arc a little bit.
Mhm.
Or if it's like, even when they're on the island and they're like, and Hunter is like, oh, do I leave Omega here? Should have such a more, she would have a better life here as a child. Like, should I do this? Like, even that episode could be more filler, but it's like actually the consequences, and you're having Hunter have those thoughts. And so it's like every episode has some sort of important integral part to these characters, and that we get let out on. So it's also a great episode.
Yeah, I agree. And going back to what Max was saying about Sid, I remember watching the finale and Sid betrays them, and I was like shocked. I was like, "Oh, Sid, how could you?"
Yeah.
But now going back and rewatching season 2, like Sid sucks.
Yeah.
That should not have been surprising. She
No.
is the worst.
Yeah,
Yeah.
her plans always get them in trouble.
Always.
And
Yeah.
she doesn't care about them. She's mean to them. She does not. In season 1, I remember her taking interest in Omega in a positive way. But that seemed to be gone in season 2.
Yeah.
She's very cold and distant to them all season long.
Yeah.
But now in hindsight, it's more of a Jeffrey Epstein kind of way.
Much like George Lucas on the logs. Yeah, I think I don't know. I'm glad they kind of moved away. I'm glad she actually did trade on them, because it is
I'm
weird.
sorry. That's the third different episode. We made a decision not to talk about George Lucas and the logs, but we're still doing it. You can't get away with it. That just goes to show. It always comes back to get you.
You brought up episode. Wait, did you or did you? You brought him
I
up.
think we've always
Yeah,
brought
I did.
We've all brought it up
Classic
at different
hat wearer
times.
mentality today. The Sid, I think, is an interesting character because she's
Girl
supposed to be like
Trandoshan.
a funny like person, right? And it's like Rhea Perlman's playing her, so it's supposed to be funny. It's like, I don't know. It's an odd acting choice, but then she just does the same formula all the time. It's like, do this mission. She feels like when you're going to do side quests in a video game, and then they're like, here's a side quest, and it's like, Mom, I don't really want to do that. I want to see more like
You
the
get like
thing.
2 minutes of free roam, but
Yes.
it's basically just like, now go see Sid and she'll give you your next mission.
Like, oh, do I have to?
And you have to like do the slow walk and you're like, why can't I run at this
Yes,
part?
that's exactly what it's like. And so yeah, I don't know. I'm glad that she did trade on them, because it would have gotten old. And with having only 3 seasons, now it's like, oh, season 1, she's pretty warm to them. 2, very cold, and now 3, presumably is going to be a redemption arc, I assume.
It should have been another clue when was it episode 1 that introduces Fee, the new character? Because when she started showing up, I was like, well, this seems pretty similar to Sid. Like, why do
Yeah.
we need 2 of them?
But better.
Yeah, Fee is good, and Sid
the Wanda
sucks.
Sykes
And because she's a love
character?
interest to Tech, which is funny because
Is she a love interest?
you don't think that's a love interest?
I don't
would.
know.
I would. I'm on
I don't
Luke's,
think so.
I'm on Luke's side where I'm like, I don't really know that was a love interest.
Do they
See,
ever
she
even
can-
hug?
Doesn't she like kiss him before he leaves for the last mission or whatever?
Oh, I
No?
don't remember.
I don't
that.
think so.
Okay,
No.
never mind.
Because
Is this fan art you drew yourself?
I'm on some weird subreddit.
He's a Tech Fee shipper.
Yeah.
But well, I
She does
consider
call
it.
him Brown Eyes, which is one of my notes, because she calls him Brown Eyes every time, and that just sticks out to me as
Yeah.
weird. Like, I know it's trying to humanize Tech, and it does a good job, but I don't know. I just always got the ick every time she would call him that.
Yeah. I think.
Because it's an obvious love interest. I mean,
I guess
If it's
maybe.
really his Brown Eyes that you're into, though, he is a clone.
I need people to start commenting on this. Let me know that they're on my side here. That was definitely like an implied love interest, because what I was going to say was the first time, spoiler alert, when the first time you're watching the season 2, you don't anticipate one of them dying, and especially Tech, right? And then I felt like on rewatch, it was like, oh, it's so obvious that they're building up to him
Mhm.
dying. Like you said, like he gets
Yeah.
like basically his own episode in that
Yeah.
not pod racing episode. And then he gets this Fee character who, in my opinion, is an obvious like love interest to the character.
I wouldn't go as far as love interest, but she does do a good job of helping him develop as a character.
Yes.
And humanizes him, and not
I
just
think.
humanizes him for the audience. I know
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. She like brings out the humanity in him.
I guess maybe love interest is maybe too far of a word, but I think yes. In that regard, because I feel like she's like, who is this guy with glasses? But I don't know if anything beyond that. And obviously, Tech is just like the shy kid in like 7th
Yeah.
grade.
I always thought she was just kind of a flirt, and yeah, like Tech's
Yeah.
a shy kid in 7th grade, and that's always the flirt's main target.
Anyway,
I'm not backing down. So that's a love interest.
I support you not backing down.
same. So we start the season with the spoils of war, which I think is an absolute banger of an episode to start with.
Are we getting into our favorites and least favorites? Because
I was going to go towards the end after we kind of go episode by episode.
well, it might come up this time because this was my least favorite.
Interesting.
I did not like the premiere. as
Really?
much.
You don't like good guys robbing a dead man?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
what happened.
I-
I liked all the stuff with the separatists,
Yeah.
and I liked the message that Echo taught Omega that
Mhm.
it's not about the mission. You got to
Yeah.
survive and live to fight another day. I don't know that morals seemed kind of obvious from the beginning, and the episode seemed to drag just to get there. Where
No,
I
I
knew
thought
it
they
was
did that-
getting after 5 minutes.
I thought they did that so well though, because she wasn't just like motivated by greed. She was motivated by guilt because of what Echo said
Yeah.
earlier in the episode when he was saying like basically like we're doing this because of her, right?
Yes.
So she was like
That was, which is
proving her worth, and
another good Tech moment though, because you never really see Tech talk out of line. Tech always talks objective, not subjective. But in there, he kind of, I guess that was objectively true
Do
as
you have
well.
the quote? What did
it
you say?
wasn't false.
I think that's basically what Max just said.
I
That
forget what the
basically-
direct quote was,
yeah.
but basically like the mess that they were in was because of her. Like they wouldn't have to hide from the Empire if it wasn't for
Yeah.
Mm.
Omega.
Mega. But like stealing Dooku's treasure is just a cool phrase to say. I was like, yeah, I do want to see that.
That's
And
true.
I think that's the
Treasure, not as much as war chest. War chest is a
Yeah.
great word.
thing. Yeah,
Phrase?
war chest is
Hyphenated?
good.
There's no way that's hyphenated. That's got to
Two
be a
words,
phrase.
right?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
2 words.
So I think, and then the Ruins of War as well, and we end. I think them getting separated is interesting. I think that's who gets hurt. I can't remember who gets hurt. We've been watching this for a bit now.
Is
Was
it-
it
Echo?
I thought it was
one of the skinny boys, right?
man. That's
Yeah.
not good.
I thought it was Tech.
Welcome to
Either
our review
Echo
of Bad Batch season 2.
well, this is the first episode.
Yes. So in the Ruins of War, I don't really have any. I was just that's kind of my only note. Again, we could spend probably way too long on each of these episodes, and there's obviously quite a bit. So
It was like
just
a
kinda,
part 1 and 2, so I don't really have much different.
in the Ruins of War, I
commentary.
like when the old man in the hut they find. That whole bit is cool. I think I love when they end up finding Dooku's treasure. It's hanging off the cliffs. Tech's going. They have to get the ropes in there and out of there. I think that is a really great action sequence. I like that it's nighttime, and this is something that like in animation, nighttime has such a specific vibe that I really enjoy. Like when I'm like Simpsons at night is like a very much like a vibe, and I love when those episodes are at night. And the same thing with Bad Batch. I'm like, there's like this weird mythical almost forest that they're running through. Tech is hurt. Yes, Tech is hurt because he finds he ends up going to what's it called, the hut. The guy helps him out, the older guy. And so I like that aspect of it, and I like the setting that they're in that episode. It feels really cool. So that's my notes for Spoils and Ruin of War. Do you guys have any more for episode 1 too?
Nope.
Yeah, that's
Spoils
about
of
covered it.
War is my least favorite, but not like by a mile. You know, it was
Yeah.
solid. Maybe my expectations were too high for the premiere.
Mhm.
I don't know.
To me, it just sets the tone. I love the cadence of this season, where I think it sets the tone where it's like, oh, it's kind of a fun adventure, right? And then it gets a little bit more serious, and then we double down on that with the third episode, the Solidarity Clone, which is the Crosshair episode, the first Crosshair episode in the season. And I'm glad they didn't hold it back. I feel like because they could have been like, okay, 6 episodes in, and we're finally going to get to Crosshair. But it doubles down on the darkness. I think we
That
see
episode's real dark.
it's really dark, and that's why I like it. It's like, oh, this actually might be a very different type of season. Maxwell, what did you think? Crosshair is your favorite character, or was?
It is. He is my favorite character in the Bad Batch. I was looking up my notes because I had quite a few from this episode.
Hit us with him.
Some memorable moments from it. Cody goes AWOL. That was a question that I actually had brought up on a recent episode that I didn't know how
He does
Corey's
indeed go
storyline
AWOL.
ended, which makes me believe that it is possibly Cody in the Bad Batch season 3 trailer that we see later on, because we see a clone that's definitely not one of the Bad Batch. But anyway, Crosshair blowing up that tank by shooting right down the barrel.
That's
So-
badass.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Cody kills a droideka by sticking a battle droid and then shooting it so
Mhm.
it dies and it like falls slowly into the droideka's bubble.
Yeah.
That was such an elaborate way to kill that thing, but that was awesome.
Yes.
I love that a lot. And Crosshair kills a guy in cold blood.
Yes, he does.
It was like just a all around a badass episode.
Is
I
that-
remember watching it on rewatch and thinking, wow, this was such a cooler episode than I remember.
Is that the episode at the very end where he kills the guy on the top of the?
In that tower.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
because it's basically to save. Forget what they're arguing about. My God, I'm blanking today, left and right.
The Imperial officer ordered Cody to kill the I don't want to say rebel because that's a loaded word in
Mhm.
Star Wars, but he was basically a rebel.
He was a separatist remnant.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cody talked. So the separatist remnant guy had the Imperial officer at gunpoint, and Cody convinced him to release him and said, like, it's cool. We don't have to keep fighting. The Clone War is over. We can move on and learn to live in peace. And then So he lets the Imperial officer go, and then the Imperial officer orders Cody to shoot the guy. And Cody's like, no, I just told him I wouldn't. And then they bicker yes, no for a minute, and then Crosshair kills him.
Yeah.
So it is super dark. Crosshair was certainly in the wrong in that situation.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. That's not the moment I'm thinking of, though. The moment I'm thinking of is when he kills the other Imperial.
Oh no,
That's
happens.
the second Crosshair episode.
Yeah.
Yes. Which we'll get to. I don't know why I'm getting this mixed up. I'm hosting this episode. So the next episode we move into is Faster, which is the one we've kind of talked to length about already, which is Tech in his pod racing, I guess, for better.
Not
like
pod
word.
racing.
Not pod racing. Again, I like the setup. You need a lighter episode. Again, the cadence of this is very good. You need a lighter episode in this season after you have kind of 3 that do end up getting darker, especially after the Spoils of War. So when I was watching this came as a needed break. But I think when you're watching them on the weekly basis, or when you're going to take a break, you're like, okay, well, I was kind of really digging that more grittiness, like the comics you were talking about.
Next month.
Comics in general. I didn't say which ones. Like comics in general, though, we like the grittier tone of it, I think, too. And I think it's the show is that it does have ebbs and flows, and it is a kid's show, and it is animation, so you need to have those kind of... Don't
That was really funny.
It's only 2 weeks from now, actually. It's not long. Check out Max's Rogue One if you learn
Yes.
about comics.
We're wearing the same clothes. So Faster... It was fun. The first half was fine, but the actual race with Tech, when he's making those decisions to win the race, are really cool to see.
Yeah, it's awesome. And like you said, it is a lighter tone. It's kind of a break emotionally because it
Yes.
can't just keep getting darker. Like your emotions can't just build for
Yeah.
16 episodes. There has to be gradual rises and releases. And people just seem to default to, because this is lighter episode, that means it's filler, that means it's bad. And it wasn't bad. It was really good.
It is. This is probably my least favorite episode of them all. But with that being said, it's like splitting hairs, because rewatching it, I was insane. It was insane to me how much I enjoyed this full season. I was like, wow, this is actually
Yeah.
really great. Like, we knew, by the time you get to Plan 99, you kind of forget about Spoils of War, Ruins of War. You kind of forget about how you got there.
And it's, we're talking about the season, I guess. 16 episodes seems like the perfect length.
Yep.
It is just the right amount where, like, as I'm watching it live, I feel like it's enough. And now when I go to do a rewatch, I pulled it up and it was like 16 episodes. That's not bad.
Yeah.
I can rewatch that.
And it is the perfect amount, because again, if it was 8 episodes, that's when you need that build consistently. But when
Yes.
you have 16, do a little bit, not even filler episodes, but do a little bit more lighter, play with those tones. Because in the end, you get different character development in different ways. Like Entombed, the next episode, which I love this episode.
Refresh my memory. Which one is Entombed?
This is one they go with Faye
Fee?
hosting this episode. And they get stuck in this it's like, it feels like an Indiana Jones episode.
They go, yes, that's
Yes.
exactly what I was going to say. They go play Indiana Jones.
Yes, and I loved it. I thought it was a blast, and the fact that you're going
If
from...
you could edit down my voice crack there in post, I'd appreciate it.
Now you're paying attention to it. The fact that, again, we're having this racing episode, right? We're having this Crosshair standalone episode, and now we're having like a bottle episode when they're in these tombs, basically, I think is a blast. And I absolutely love this episode. I love the visuals of this. I love when they get separated. I think Omega grows here a lot too, when she's realizing that the things that she does affects the group as well. She's not just a kid. I mean, she is a kid, but she's not just a kid within this group. Everyone needs to kind of play a part.
She can be a reliable member of the group.
Yes, exactly. And I think and this is really, to me, she's done that in the past, but this is really where she learns that lesson, I think. And I love this episode. I think it's a blast. Again, really surprised going back and watching how many episodes I was like, ooh, but I do like that one. Ooh, but I do like this one.
I like this one too. This is the one where they awaken that big mech monster spirit thing.
Mhm.
And I remember the line sticks out to me when Tech says, "We woke it up when we removed its heart, so it stands to reason that if we replace its heart, then it would go back to sleep," or
Yeah.
something along
Yeah.
those lines. And maybe it's just because I know Tech's dead now, but it feels like they can give lines like that to someone else because it really makes everyone else seem incompetent. Like, that's not a Tech thing. Like, that's not
You don't need to
that
be a
hard
super
to deduce.
genius.
Exactly.
to know what Command Z is.
I think it is one of those things though, where like that is his skill, is in those moments of panic, he's able to deduce things like that or alter things. So like I think like when Wrecker's like, how do I burst out of here? I think Tech's thinking more logically within that. But yeah, I guess that is true too.
Sorry, go on.
The mech beast or whatever it is, did it look like Zepho technology to you?
Yeah, it did. From
Because
Jedi
they-
Fallen Order and
yeah.
Survivor.
Yes, that was my big takeaway on rewatch. I didn't really care for this episode a whole lot either. I think this episode and the last one may have been the low points for me. But that was the big thing. Like every time I saw like the big shot of the thing, like its head had like that wide head, and I was just
Yeah.
like, it
And
looks
the
like
big center eye.
yeah. I was like, it looks like Zepho technology, but they never really address it. So
It looks like a villain from The Incredibles.
that's all I was thinking the entire time.
Sorry, changing gears like that. The Incredibles. Yeah, I can see that. The Underminer. Okay.
Yeah,
Or
there we
like
go.
the ball thing
Yes.
with the spider
Yeah.
legs. Another line that stuck out was, I don't even know if it's the line, it's more of a plot point, but they talk about having to get back to their ship, and if the beast destroys their ship, they'll be stranded here.
Yes.
That should come up all the time in Star Wars, and it seems to
Yes.
never.
I think that's why I like this
I'd be
episode.
constantly
Yeah.
worried about
The
that.
stake
Came up in the next episode.
because he's getting closer and closer too, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's so creepy. So the next episode, Tribe, the return of Gunji.
Oh, Tribe. Never mind. I was thinking of the one after that.
Yes, because nothing happens here with the ship.
Yeah.
But this is the return of Gunji, which is great.
Yes, this is a good one.
I was excited to see this. This is-
Jedi
another-
lightsabers.
yes, honestly, I
That's
wasn't.
basically all it was too, because
Yep.
it was very like inconsequential. I remember he was in the trailer, and a lot of people were super excited. Like,
Yes.
Ganji's gonna be in this. What does it mean? And it's like, well, it's just one episode. He's back with the Wookiees now. Like,
Yeah,
okay.
but man, was it fun to see Gunji? It was
Yeah.
I like that. This episode to me is maybe a lower-ish point as well, because again, the second half when it's a Gunji and lightsabers, it's very fun. But before that, I'm like, that's what I remember. But the entire episode before that is it's okay.
No, I love this because
Everything you
I
just
like,
said earlier.
I like Jedi and lightsabers and Gunji and Wookiees, but the
Luke was being
meditating-
unironic when he was cheering for those things.
yeah, it was. The meditating and like listening to the great tree is I think what they call it, or maybe that's the Zelda one. But he teaches Omega to do it too, and Omega's not necessarily force sensitive.
Yeah.
Maybe she is. I guess it's not
We'll
confirmed.
see.
But even if she's not, meditation and being calm and present is still a skill
Yeah.
anyone could have even without the force. And I
Yeah.
liked that sort of mesh between regular people and regular people sounds like there's a stigma between force users and non-force
Yes.
users. The same skills can be applied to either.
We also are regular people in this scenario too. We're not, so I don't think you can. Yeah, I think it's okay to say.
Maybe you normies are.
It's not the next episode either. I'm looking back at my notes now. I was episodes
It's
off.
not Truth and Consequences. This is where the season really takes a turn.
Yes.
This is when Echo leaves. This is at the very end. This is the biggest takeaway for me
He
personally.
leaves at the end of the next one, right? This was like another like two-parter episode.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
the
refresh
Truth and
my memory
Consequences and
I
the
guess
Crossing.
the audiences.
Because Truth and Consequences, this one,
Take it over, Maxwell.
I don't think it had the Bad Batch in it at all, right? I think it was all Tucci. I don't know the other clone that was in it, right? This is the
Oh, this is the clone conspiracy, or I guess so.
I think it's the
episode
second
is
one,
Clone
right?
Conspiracy.
Isn't the second episode Clone Conspiracy? I think this was a two-parter.
The Clone Conspiracy
Yes,
is the next
Clone Conspiracy.
episode.
This is the one with Tucci that the Bad
Yes.
Batch wasn't in at all because this is the two-parter.
And at first, very hesitant to not see the Bad Batch in a episode.
No, I was all about it. I loved the politics and stuff, especially the difference between like the Republic Senate and the Imperial Senate. I would love to get more involved with
Well,
that.
I was gonna say the first 5 minutes I was like, oh, I don't know, and then after that I was all on board because this whole arc was great.
Yeah.
Just for posterity, before we get too into it, is it Tucci or Chuchi? Is it? Because I think
Tucci
the
with a T.
subtitles have a CHI, but I always thought it was Tucci, like Stanley Tucci.
I was just gonna say like Stanley
But-
Tucci.
I think it is Chuchi.
Tucci?
Go ahead, you internet users can fact check me.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's Chuchi.
Chuchi.
It is
I am
CHUCHI.
I love this episode. I think the one that precedes it as well. I think it's a great container to show the politics beyond what's going on within the Bad Batch universe. We know what's going on in the Bad Batch universe, obviously, in this time period, but the fact that we're able to see it affect the Bad Batch, and fighting for clone rights is a really fun thing to see. Because I feel like usually we don't really focus on that, even within Attack of the Clones, even within the prequel trilogy.
I
We're not-
remember in the Padme books, at the end of the first one, when Padme dies and Sabe goes and starts like trying to look into it, and she goes to her desk and she just mentions like all this stuff she sees files or amendments that haven't been filed for clone personhood, and it was just like a throwaway line in that book. But I remember stopping the audiobook and be like, no, I want that. I want to learn more about this. That sounds fascinating.
Give me the text of that bill.
I'm finally getting it, and I'm
Yep.
real jazzed up about it.
Oh yeah. So then moving into Truth and Consequences, what we were talking about before. This is when Echo leaves. This is a huge moment, I feel like, within the Bad Batch. The Bad Batch are completely separating, and I feel like realistically, Echo has.
What happens in this episode?
This is the part 2 of.
Oh, this is the part 2 for the clone conspiracy.
Yes, and this is also really interesting where they're, I love the fact of hiding behind corners, and this dark underbelly of the political world is kind of shown too. And then we're getting the separation now, and I feel like retroactively, presumably, Echo probably isn't going to feel bad, but it's like crazy. He lost all this time out now with Tech, and really started breaking up the Bad Batch. And something that I like a lot too is just like in this episode hits home like with just like life in general. It's like, you don't want your friends to move away. You don't want your friend, to grow up and go to college or whatever. And this is how Omega's feeling, like way too young almost, but like real life, she is in a real life situation and real life is going to happen around her. And so I feel really bad for her, and the fact that, and as an audience member too, just the Bad Batch separating. I'm like, well, no, I want my friends to be together. I want to see them together. So this is like a really sad moment at the end. It kind of came as a shock to me too.
I know. I remember thinking the whole time watching it, because Echo keeps making all those comments about how we should be doing more for clones and more in the galaxy. And I was like, yes, Echo, I agree completely. The Bad Batch should help do more. And then Echo just leaves to go do it on his own with Rex. And I'm like, well, good for you, and I guess good for the Bad Batch also, because they're going to help Omega be safe and happy and grow up, and I guess this is what's best for everyone, but that's not what I wanted or expected, but yay, I suppose.
I agree. Max, you have any thoughts on this episode besides that?
I don't know if it was this episode or the episode before, but Rex makes an appearance at some point because he saves Senator Chuchi, and then he takes her somewhere. It was like a garage, and he was like, oh, I know a place in the lower levels or whatever, and I'm fairly certain that it was a reference to the Mortez sisters. Martez sisters
interesting.
From the last season of the Clone Wars.
I caught that too. I agree.
That's cool.
It made me happy.
Yeah, these episodes, the two parters really do blend. Same thing with Spoils of War and Ruins of War. The next episode is the one with the plane, with the ship.
Yes,
this
was the one I was thinking about.
I also love this episode too. Again, the visuals are great. Omega doubles down on her.
Can you give more detail about what this episode is?
This is the one where they go mining for Sid. So they go to this planet, and then they want to extract, I forget what the element is, but then when they're extracting this element, their ship gets stolen, and then there's a big like sandstorm and they get trapped. And then the next episode they find their ship. I'm kind of combining these two episodes now.
Yep.
And then that was when they were like they're fighting for like those workers' rights in that episode. Boy, this show has an agenda, doesn't it? Because they were like being lied to from their leader, whose name escapes me at the moment.
Yeah, the retrieval. And this is a great episode too when you're following that young kid who steals the ship.
Yeah.
And I love the dude is super freaky and scuzzy looking, obviously, and he's classic Mad Max, storing everything for himself for food and everything. And the setting is so cool in this episode too. Both of them, the crossing and the retrieval. You have that contrast of like the big glowing, what's it called? Like big glowing pools and stuff within those caves, within that giant tunnel when they're going in, and then you have that really red, stark underground city as well within the retrieval. And I think both of these are really cool, and I think the Bad Batch are the perfect people to go and help liberate those people. Not even just because they're finding their ship, but I think that's the thing with the Bad Batch. They're always finding some sort of good within the bad situation. It's like, oh, well, and that's kind of like obviously just the story writers, right, within these. But I think that's like the point of the Bad Batch is like even when everyone's turning against them, they're the Bad Batch. They're the good guys, but they have like this stigma. And it's like, even when they're trying to find their own ship, they are stumbling across this bigger conspiracy to be able to help other people that are in some ways more like them than they know. And that's the whole point of the rebellion. That's the whole point of, I think the good and the Force too. And I think the Bad Batch emulate that, as well. But I love this arc, these two episodes.
Yeah, that was a lot more profound than anything I'm gonna say. I was just gonna
honestly
say,
I didn't. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that I really like that they showed us the tool that they use to drill,
Wow, you are right. Yeah.
and then they flip it, and then the little syringe comes down, and they extract that thing. Oh, it's really
white collar,
cool.
blue collar. You know,
That's looking for these deeper themes, and I'm just like, want.
drill goal. Yeah, that's right. That's way funnier.
I believe this is the 2 episodes before Metamorphosis, because this
This is indeed.
right around when I take my nap in my rewatch.
Oh my
I
God.
don't remember these 2 episodes as well either. So I'm glad you were able to talk about it so eloquently. So no thoughts over here.
Perfect. Well, that takes us to Metamorphosis. then.
Metamorphosis.
was great.
Which we kind of already talked about. But yeah, and also it's the entrance of Royce Hemlock, who is actually
I was
a
wondering when
really
he got introduced. He
It
is
is-
a fantastic villain.
He is a great villain. It is almost a shame he'll only be a villain for presumably season 3 plus 5 episodes in season 2.
Oh, maybe,
No, he
maybe
makes
we'll see him in live
Snoke.
action.
sequel era. He'll be there.
Yeah.
Palpatine, Exegol. Yeah.
He's gonna be starting.
He's a real one. He's going
He's a real
going
one.
the distance.
Well, so they capture the Zillow Beast, and
Yep.
then the Bad Batch asks oh, where are they going or whatever, and was it someone in the Empire who's saying it? Someone said oh, they didn't have any coordinates to where they were going or something.
no, that was Tech.
it was Tech.
Mhm.
Yeah, he said that their destination was unknown. No, because never mind. We see him later on Tantus.
He said that their destination was not in the logs. So they in the flight log he said that the destination was not
Don't say
written
fly.
in the ship that was ruined. So they can't track the Empire to where the
Right.
Zillow Beast is going. 'cause
but we saw
it's
it on
going-
Tantus, right?
Yes.
Okay, never mind. I was gonna say maybe it was going to the unknown regions, and we'll see Royce Hemlock found the First Order, but nah, never mind. Scrap that.
I
Found the First Order. That's ambitious.
yeah,
Well,
found.
along with other people,
He's too much of a
along with this podcast favorite character from Aftermath,
Ray Sloan,
Ray Sloan.
the goat.
Royce Hemlock. I'm excited to see him because he is intriguing every single time he's on screen. He's also voiced by Jimmy Simpson, who plays one of the McPoyle brothers on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh my gosh,
Oh,
is
that's
it?
so creepy.
Yeah,
I did
as
not
well
know
as
that.
as well as the Man in Black in season 1 of Westworld, amongst a bunch of other things that he's really great in. Jimmy Simpson's a really good voice actor and actor in general. So I am so surprised he was able to bring this creepiness and this
Yeah.
low tone, monotone, low talking person, to screen. And I think he knocks it out of the park. And
Mhm.
it's obviously how he sounds, but his calculated actions are so freaky. Like he's like 5 steps ahead, and he plays the game of chess like Thrawn.
Yeah.
It's really freaky, but Metamorphosis is great. It's got a really creepy creature in it. I asked Luke, it was like, would this scare your son while watching? Because it is pretty freaky.
Might have if we didn't fall asleep.
Maybe.
About Royce Hemlock, real
Yeah.
quick, I want to give props to the animation and how much detail they put into it, because he has a bad hand, and
Mm.
every time you see him, usually he's messing with his hand or something like
Mm.
that, and it's really interesting, and it makes, I think, for a more compelling character. And I remember when I watched this the first time, and I'm thinking that seems like something that would be an actor choice, And the fact that they
In
went
animation,
so far
yeah.
as to include it in animation, I'm like, they're really putting detail into this show.
Yeah.
That's why the fans love Star Wars animation, and this is why.
This is why. We're getting hand gestures over here.
Like I said before, I slept through this episode twice for the most part. And so I finally did rewatch it in its entirety, and it's good. But
Be
Like, I
honest, was
knew-
this entirety?
yeah, I watched it all. But I was a little disappointed because I knew it was the Zillow Beast episode, and I knew just from the discourse on Twitter, everyone was talking for years and years, whatever happened to the Zillow Beast? We saw it in season 2 of the Clone Wars, I think, and not ever since. So that was what,
Yeah, early
2010?
on.
It'd been 13 years, and everyone was like, oh, we finally got to see the Zillow Beast again. And all we saw was that the Empire has it, and they're using it for cloning stuff. We knew that. Palpatine kept it after the Clone Wars, and it's not like we really learned any new information here.
I'm okay that we don't have a concrete answer of how that is going to play out or anything like that. To me, it's just I'm happy that they're continuing the story. They're saying hey, we know we talked about this in the Clone Wars. We didn't forget about it. We are going to bring it back, and stuff like
Yeah.
that is important. So I'm okay that it's I don't know, yeah, like you said, it just kind of confirms what we already suspected. But that's fine. I'm just glad that they're doing that.
Yeah,
think
maybe
I-
I was just expecting more out of it after everyone was so excited to see the Zillow Beast again, and so I assumed that it was more of a conclusion to the Zillow Beast era or arc of Star Wars, and it was really just a reminder that it is not over.
The next episode, Outpost. An episode that I think stuck in all of our minds through the entire.
That's the Crosshair episode.
That is the crossover
Yeah.
episode
the
indeed.
second one.
It
That's
is
a good one.
fantastic. And also, sorry, the moment I was talking about earlier, it's not even Crosshair who kills him. I can't even think about the other guy, the other bad.
The other clone.
No, he's not a clone. He's the other Imperial guy from the other episode where he kills the guy and shoots him off the roof. Can't think of that.
Oh,
'cause
Rampart.
He's going to
Rampart.
report. Yeah, when he's going to report that's in episode 3, I believe. I think.
Rampart is the bad guy from season 1, which now that I'm thinking about, is he even in season 2?
Yeah, he's in it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. That's
doesn't
right. I
do
think it was
much.
episode 3.
Yeah.
He kills a clone.
Yes,
Was it a clone
yes,
in Cold Blood?
Yes,
Oh,
it was,
that's right,
it was.
because the clone was going to tell him that
Yep.
the Bad Batch was interfering.
Actually, I think that might have been at the end of
Sereno.
episode 2 because I think that.
Yeah.
I think that might have been.
Was it? Okay, that's the moment
Yeah.
when I was like, oh, man, this episode,
we
this
just
season's
rewatched
great.
this season.
Yes, we did. It all blends together, folks. But the Outpost does not blend together because
No,
my
it stands
God,
out.
it's so good. You get Crosshair being a villain, but you see him in the worst circumstances, standing up for himself, standing up for other people, and then ultimately shooting one of his own in quotes, I guess, at the end. And it is such a harrowing episode. And the fact that I can't think of the guy's name who dies.
I forget too.
Oh my God.
Mayday?
Mayday. Because it's so cool. How do we forgetting? Aren't you glad again you're listening / watching this episode? We know what we're talking about. When Mayday dies, though,
Someone's
it is,
listening, going, "Please have me on this podcast. I promise
Yeah.
I know more than
most
you."
of the 90% of the time, I swear we're like, oh my God, we know more than this other person's talking about. And this time, someone else is doing that, and I'm sure it feels good. But when Mayday dies, it is so heartbreaking because you see that survival kick in, and Crosshair truly does care about people. And with the Bad Batch, as we know, with the inhibitor chip being disconnected in season 1, that he doesn't have, he's not being controlled. He does still care about people like he always has, and it's just he clearly just has a different point of view from people. And I think when Mayday dies, and that's like the last straw, and he sees how everyone's being treated. It's such a good moment when he shoots that officer. It is
It's also
season
great
defining.
that
But, and then how is it season defining though? Because I mean, Jesus
'cause
Christ,
so
Tech
much still
dies.
happens. I
Yeah.
know. It's great that Mayday was just a reg. Like, I mean, even just saying that sounds rude, but that was such a element in the early season of the early season 1 of the Bad Batch, and even season 7 of the Clone Wars. The way they treat and talk about regs as being beneath them,
Yeah.
and now that line is starting to get blurred a little bit more, and they're recognizing that these clones are people, and they're just like them, the Bad Batch, and they all deserve to continue.
1000%. Max, you have any notes?
Nothing outside of what's already been said. I think off the top, I talked about how Crosshair was my favorite character.
Mhm.
If not, I'll do it now. Crosshair is my favorite character in the Bad Batch. And watching this episode, yeah, it just like confirms that. It's like, Crosshair's not a good guy, but he's
Mhm.
definitely the best one.
When you see the vultures,
I was just
they're
gonna
not
bring
actual
that up.
vultures. Yeah,
The ice, I think they're called ice vultures, maybe.
they're circling around, and he knows that he's gonna die.
Yeah.
He can't live with himself, but he's like, this motherfucker.
Mhm.
Like, it's so rewarding. You're like, yo,
And I
His
don't
little
know.
fist
They,
bump.
they cover so much ground in that one episode too, of like how different Crosshair is from the other clones. Like when they're talking about how they're there to just like watch this equipment or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Crosshair's like, "Well, what's in it?" And they're like, "I don't know. We've wanted to know the whole time." And he's like, "You haven't looked?"
Yeah.
Like that's how like different they were going into the episode.
Yeah.
And then by the end, he was avenging him.
Yep, exactly. So good. So the next episode, hard turn again though, is I want to say it's Pabu.
I think that's right. Yeah.
I think this is a great episode of adventure. It shows Hunter conflicted with Omega again, like I said earlier in the episode, where he was debating leaving her so that she can have a good life as a kid. I love this setting. I love the fact that this great flood is happening. I love the way the town is built up and they have to get to the top before it starts to flood. It raises stakes. It's fun. It's nerve-wracking. Some of it takes place at night, which I'm a night freak for this for animation, I guess. But I really like this episode. I thought it could have been a filler episode to be like, oh god, now after Outpost we have to sit through this shit. But no, I think it's really fun.
It wasn't bad, but I would still say it was a little more filler.
Yes, oh absolutely. And I would
was-
put it towards the bottom of the list out of these 16, but I still really, because it does stick out in my head though a lot, like that set design and everything.
I like the set design
Yeah.
a lot, and I remember very distinctly the first time I watched it being so bummed
Mhm.
that this flood was happening, and I was like,
Yes.
"Oh man, this was such a cool place."
I know.
And then like after the episode, I have to like remind myself, being like, "That's not real.
Yes.
Like it's okay."
It was giving me big Atlantis: The Lost Empire vibes,
Which is
'cause
a great movie.
the design of the people, the big flood.
The overall aquatic theme.
Yeah. It also unlocked a big fear of mine, apparently, when Omega and other little girl are on the boat
Yep.
and the water recedes for a tsunami.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
they're on land all of a sudden. That's horrifying.
Yeah, it is.
I don't like the idea of boats as much anymore.
That's a great moment, though. That is a freaky moment when you can put yourself in that situation and be
Mhm.
like, oh my God. No fun.
Yeah.
So moving on from Pabu, the tipping point. This is great. This is clearly going back to Crosshair, and you are seeing the conflict within the Empire.
What's
What?
Tipping Point about?
Why
That's
are you looking-
Crosshair on Tantus.
This is when
Oh
he's,
yeah, that's the one where he warns the Bad Batch that they're coming for him.
and he's
them.
strapped down, basically getting interrogated the entire time
Mm-hmm.
by Hemlock,
Right.
which is great because you get to see that because it's like, you know, Crosshair's doing what he thinks is right, and then you're seeing that crack within, you know, within this organization. It's like you can either pick left or right, and then if you pick one side, you end up seeing the division within there, and it's like, oh, it's not just two sides. There's like a million sides within each side.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously with the rebellion stuff too, and obviously the Bad Batch are their own division within that side, and then you get to see this side where it's like Crosshair, who is one of their own, is now being treated terribly and will continue getting treated terribly into season 3. Because I guess
Can't
he is seen as a traitor at this point. So, you know,
We're gluttons for punishment.
Yeah, that's a real tough bind that Crosshair's in, where his brothers think he's a traitor, and the Empire treats him like a traitor. He has no people. He's all alone. Everyone hates him.
yeah, not great. And then we move on to the last batch of episodes, which is the two-parter. This batch.
The best batch, though.
Oh, all right, there we go. So batch of the best batch. It's good TikTok right there for you. And then the last batch of episodes, the Summit and Plan 99. I'll just group these together. I think the Summit is a great setup. The word Summit's always fun. It always feels like a fun tech thing where like, I want to go to the Summit, and everyone gathers around and is announcing cool shit and whatever. I don't know. I've never been to one. It sounds great though from the side. But like the Summit, it invokes this idea of what it should be. Like if you watch Succession or anything, they go to these summits and everything. And if that's a fun, they're on gondolas. It seems fun, but this is a great setting for this because
Did that seem fun, Matt, when they were on the gondola? Was that a
you
good
know,
scene for you?
Gondolas do freak me out. I don't like them. Why are they?
This must have been torture for you.
Yeah, it was not great. I don't like gondolas. They swing too much, and you have to go over. They're freaky. Get a different way of transportation up a hill. You know,
We have ships, speeders, like
not in real life
especially
though.
in Star Wars. Yeah.
But so the Summit, I think, is setting something up that you don't even know is set up yet. It's simple, like the gondola, you know, is set up, and then you're like, oh, this is not going to come back at all or whatever. It's like, this is the only way back, basically, but like, you know, in a huge way. And so at the end of the episode, you know, they get stuck on these gondolas and they're in pursuit. They're getting in pursuit, and we end, right, with just like, what's going to happen? And then obviously the Plan 99, 10 minutes in, Tech dies. And what a shock, the fact that it's 10 minutes in. And then that's what, again, when we get to the stakes are raised again, where we're like, Tech is presumably actually dead. Hemlock shows that he's even more malicious than we thought. When they throw his goggles on the floor and Hunter's kind of like really left in shock, it is a gut punch, and Omega grows up a million times over in this whole season, I think. And then, yeah, I think that like Echo has to feel terrible, and it's so depressing and dark, but it's so good. What are your guys' thoughts on this episode? In these episodes?
Saw Gerrera shows up, and every time Saw Gerrera shows up, I get excited to see him and also just filled with dread because it's always awful.
Yes,
he
I agree.
brings death and destruction everywhere he goes, and I know it's the point of his character, but as soon as he shows up, it's like, oh, everything sucks. This is the worst now. The
Yep.
plan's ruined. The mission's gone. Which reminds me, did they ever succeed in the mission? Do we ever get a confirmed? They did not find. They did not track.
I don't even remember what the mission is now.
They were trying to put a tracker on the guy Hemlock's ship so that they could track it back to Crosshair, to Tantus. Did they definitely fail with that? Or is season 3? They must have definitely failed. I think I remember now they definitely failed. So that's a bummer that it failed. And then, yeah, Tech dies. The Summit was awesome. We got to see Krennic and Tarkin.
Yes.
Also, Yularen and, Hemlock. Yularen and Krennic were at the Summit with Tarkin and Hemlock. That was cool. Project Stardust was name dropped.
Super cool.
Liked all of that. Yeah, Tech's death was super sad. Just the intensity of that scene on the gondola when Hunter keeps giving orders and he's like shouts like, "Why aren't we moving? Like, why aren't we moving?" And then he tells Hunter to get Tech back up here, and it's like, how is he gonna do that? And it's really sad. That
It's
scene
not
was just shot
happening.
very well. The music when Tech
Yep.
shoots the thing and drops down, that was awesome. I've said before, I think Tech will come back in some capacity. The fact that Hemlock, like you said,
Yeah.
had the goggles and retrieved them means that he also retrieved Tech's body, however mangled and destroyed it may have been. I think that maybe that would be a cool thing for season 3, that they're still experimenting on or with Tech's remains, and the Bad Batch has to go retrieve him to give him like a proper burial or funeral, and that
Mhm.
could be a nice end to the season, maybe for season 3.
That would be nice.
That would be nice.
But yeah, everything else, Omega gets taken, which sucks. It was brutal to see Wrecker and Hunter get captured by the Empire, like
Yep.
when they got the broken neck and broken arm. That was just kicking you while you're down at its finest. That
Yeah.
sucked. It sounds like I mean,
It's
was
a great
effective.
episode,
It-
but it's a bummer.
I
Yeah.
know it emotionally
everything sucks. I
affected
thought you were
me,
about to be
and-
like, man, what a great episode.
Right.
Yeah, it is though.
Sometimes that's what you like in Star Wars, and
Yeah.
They
As
did- they
Matt
did
was
what they
like
set out to
describing
do.
Tech's death, I just have like the sound of silence playing in my head. Just being like, but one thing that Matt, you already said, but I want to emphasize because I remember so clearly when Tech died, not comprehending it until it was like way too late. Like when he died,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, he's dead.
Yeah.
Because then I was like, this episode isn't ending.
No,
Like,
I
there's
know,
like
it's the
20
music.
minutes left.
Yeah.
the music is what really tells you that he's dead.
Yeah.
Because if they
Yeah.
play any other music during that scene, it's like, oh, what's Tech gonna do now? And
Right.
no, he's gone.
He's gone. And then we find out that Omega has a sister, which is a huge cliffhanger. And then also Omega and Crosshair are in
Yeah,
the same.
that was another thing that was making me mad on my rewatch. That was such a big reveal at the end. She has the same accent. This girl is talking like the only other New Zealander female in all of Star Wars, and then it's revealed that she's a clone, and everyone's so surprised, myself
We missed
included,
it.
and it's like, were you not paying attention?
I do like Omega's accent, but I would not call it subtle.
No, it's not
Yeah, that's
subtle.
true.
And Emery is her name. She has the same accent, and
Mhm.
I was shocked that she was a clone, and I don't know why. It's like she's the only. It seems so obvious now in retrospect.
Man, but so that's how the season closes out. And I love this season. Rewatching it, I loved it then, I loved it now. And so, like, how would you compare it to season 1? Like, again, from memory, obviously, no need to rewatch because we did it. But like off the top of your dome,
I mean, Tech dying is just so much more memorable that it's hard to remember anything else from season 1. But the season 1 finale was also really cool. The destruction of Topoka City
Mhm.
and Crosshair escaping with the Bad Batch and then staying behind. Because boy, you really thought Crosshair was going to leave Kamino with them,
Yeah.
and then he still stayed behind. And then season 2 starts, and you realize that he was there for like 16 rotations or something
Yeah.
absurd. He
Yeah.
was there for days or weeks.
yep.
That is rough. So yeah, I probably like season 2 better, but it's inches above season 1. They're both consistently great.
I need to rewatch season 1 to give it an honest review because season 2 is so fresh in my head that I feel like I would have to say the opposite, that season 2 is miles ahead of season 1. But
I'm in
I bet if I rewatch season
yeah.
1, I would feel different.
I'm in the same
Mhm.
boat though. Is like I want to give it an honest review, and I'm sure we'll equally forget as much as we did in season 2. But I would like to rewatch it and actually compare it. But I would say season 2 is miles ahead because season 1 there was a lot of filler that led really nowhere, which
That's
is
what we
fine.
were saying after our first watch of season 2, though.
filler, but
Then
filler
we came
that
back and
left-
said that all the filler episodes actually developed everything a lot better in retrospect. And I'm sure we'd say the same thing about season 1. That being said, I
Potentially.
really remember that Rancor episode not doing anything.
I was just about to say that. I was
Right,
about to
yeah.
say that season 1 had filler that was unnecessarily
Yes.
filler though, because they went and they got a Rancor for Jabba, but then they had to make a big point like of how like, well, this isn't that Rancor though. This is just a different Rancor.
A
Maybe we should go
Rancor.
back and
We're like,
rewatch
why
that
would this
episode.
not just be the same one?
Yeah,
We gotta be misremembering something. That must have been a good episode.
I don't know.
We'll go back and rewatch it. I mean, I'm not like bashing Bad Batch by any means.
Same.
Obviously, I love the show, and I'm super excited for season 3. I'm terrified of how it's going to end, because Star Wars does not have a good track record of ending their animated shows on high notes. Usually, they're very emotional.
Yeah, that's true.
and,
Oh, you mean on like emotional high notes?
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
they
They end
do very
very
good at ending
well.
on quality high notes.
Yes, quality a high note, but like
Yeah. It
emotionally,
might be sad.
yeah.
I feel like Dave
I-
Filoni was like, You want to see these suckers die? He's like, okay.
It's like, remember those 6 seasons of Clone Wars where everyone said that all these clones are the same character and we don't have any emotional attachments to any of them, and I made you care? Watch me do it again.
Yeah. I like this voice we got him going for Dave Filoni. It's like he asks a question, then weirdly goes higher in the second half when he answers his own question. Let me do it again.
I'm gonna make a TikTok of that, and Dave Filoni's gonna be like, "What the fuck? Is that what I sound like?"
Is that what I sound like? I don't think it is.
We're making him sound like such a dork.
It's
But
just,
like,
Dave Filoni just asks and answers his own questions all day. Anyway, I want to keep going with that bit. But I don't
Other
think
notes I had on the season. Captain Nolan, the guy that Crosshair kills on the Outpost, says to Crosshair about clones, "I don't like used equipment,"
Yes.
which is a
Burn.
pretty savage thing to say about the people that you are. Like, you're saying that to a clone.
Yeah.
So that's mean. And then the only other note is what I wrote is clone commandos can get it, which is true. But like, the Empire is phasing out all the clones because they don't like used equipment. They don't trust them, whatever. They want to use conscripted soldiers.
Yeah.
But clone commandos are still cool.
Yeah.
Just because they're better and cooler and stronger.
What are you going to do?
They're not wrong. They are way cooler.
The Clone Commando's first appearance was in Legends in that video game, right?
Yeah, Republic Commando.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm really glad Dave Filoni has done that a couple times now, where he's like really just unnecessarily included like a really fun cameo.
Well, do you remember when they included it was those clones, it was Delta Squad that they
Was
included
it?
in the Clone Wars, and it
How
was
do-
just
oh, they were in the Clone Wars?
yes, and it was just like a cutaway scene. They land, and I don't remember if they're escorting someone. They just get off a ship, and it's those 4 clones. You can see like their armor is the same. They have, I'm not gonna remember their names, but Scorch and a few others. But yeah, he included them, and he didn't need to. And at the time, it was like, oh, that was random and a fun nod to Legend stuff that is not really canon anymore, but now it is canon. And he did that for people like us that watched it and thought there's no reason that this can't be canon, doesn't contradict anything. And now Clone Commandos are massively important parts of the canon.
Yeah. Man. Massive props to Dave Filoni. I know every Star Wars fan loves Dave Filoni, so this is not going to be anything new, but his love is well deserved.
So, what's your guys' favorite and least favorite episodes of this season? Rewatching.
Least favorite was episode 1 or maybe 2, I guess, or maybe the arc as a whole. I don't know. My favorite, probably, Plan 99, the finale. It was obviously the best, you know. I guess I have the good fortune of going first, so I get to claim that one as my favorite.
That's
What
okay.
are your guys'
I don't
favorites?
think Plan 99 is my favorite. It's the most memorable, but as an episode, I don't want to watch my favorite character die all the time. You know,
That's
when I
fair.
rewatch.
I don't want to steal Matt's too, because I know
No,
what
do
it's
it.
going to be.
You
but
said that earlier when you saw my list too.
I'm going to try to pick something a little bit different, but the Outpost is definitely up there.
Yeah.
So I am going to steal that one, but I would also put the other Crosshair episode up there. I'd say Solitary Clone's probably my second favorite.
Oh, nice. Also a great episode. I have the Outpost, as we just talked about, the Clone Conspiracy, because it's so fun, and then the Crossing, because it's just kind of a fun episode, and I know it's a 2-parter, but it's the first part, and I think the stakes when you're like, oh my god, my ship's gone, is a really fun way. Again, they need to introduce that more, to be like, oh yeah, we should probably think about our ship more all the time,
Yeah.
and we're parking that. Where do you park ships?
I know, like Empire Strikes Back when they're in the asteroid field and they go sleep in the space slug.
Yes.
It's like if a component on the Millennium Falcon breaks and you can't fix it, this is the end of your entire story. Like,
Yeah.
you get eaten by a space slug.
You have to call your friend, be like, hey man, I need you to pick me up. Where are you? Well, this is going to be hard to explain, but I am in a meteor in a slug.
I once had a friend call me. I'm sure you know who it is. I think I've told the story before, but he was working and we were in high school and I had the day off because I worked at Panera Bread in high school, the worst job ever. And he was like, hey, can you come pick me up? I split my pants at work. And I had to go. We had to go.
Split my pants.
And it was like, okay, what? Like, so not only do I have to pick you up, I have to drive you to a store to pick up new pants because you have to take your lunch right now. Anyway, that's the equivalent of
You're a good friend.
a space slug.
Ripping your pants at work.
Yep. You know who it is. And so, yeah, that was our review of Bad Batch Season 2. I think we all really enjoyed it. There wasn't really, at least favorite episodes, I guess. I guess I skipped over that. We all kind of talked maybe faster for us. For you as the first 2 episodes, so didn't need to go back and say that. Never mind.
We'll just fix that in post. Don't worry.
Yes, we will. But thank you so much for listening to this, of our review. I swear we do know what we're talking about, but does anybody have any force for thought?
I do.
Whoa.
I rewatched the first half of Empire Strikes Back, fell asleep, so I'll finish it up later. But I had some more force for thought come up as I was watching it, and it also related to the Bad Batch because Gunji gets returned to Kashyyyk, and we see Kashyyyk. It was a very tropical, warm, kind of swampy planet. Those Wookiees are not adapted to harsh, cold weather. Yet Empire Strikes Back makes us believe that Chewbacca doesn't need a coat on Hoth. I think that might go as far as a continuity error at this point. Just because he's got some fur, he is
I don't know.
not gonna just tank that cold weather on Hoth.
Think about cats outside. They can do really well when it's winter outside, like an outdoor cat. They can do really well when winter, or they can do really well in summer. Now imagine being a 6'4" Wookiee. If not bigger, I'd say that they could probably adapt pretty well.
I mean, Wookiees have so much fur on them that I feel like it makes more sense for them to be adapted to the cold rather than the tropical. I feel like it's weird to
But
see
they come
something
from
with so much.
Kashyyyk.
Yeah, I know, but I feel like that is weird, right? To see
Yeah.
like such a furry, presumably warm animal.
Mhm.
Animal. No offense, Chewie. Sorry. Come from there. I don't know. That's
All right, so
That is
maybe
interesting, though.
I'll phrase it that way, that the force for thought is that the Wookiees that are so clearly adapted to a cold environment live on a warm tropical planet like Kashyyyk.
Yes, that is worse. That is weirder.
maybe Kashyyyk has seasons and we've just always seen it in summer.
That could be. We've seen it in the holiday special, The Bad Batch, Jedi Fallen Order, and Revenge of the Sith, which is a pretty good sample size, I'd say.
And canonically, they all take place in June, which is crazy.
I know. Is that what we're going with?
Yep.
All right, you heard it here, folks. That is not a continuity error. Maybe some force for thought. Maybe not even if Matt convinced you. So thanks for watching. Follow us on socials, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and we'll see you next time.
See you, Sammy.